afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the Cost of Home Conversation series. My name is Tracy McPherson, Habitat Omaha's Advocacy and Public Affairs Director, as well as the interim CEO of the organization at this time. In just a few moments, I will introduce our featured guests and we will get the conversation started. But first, I wanted to make a couple of quick announcements. This conversation is being recorded and will be available for viewing at a later date for those who are not able to attend today or who have to leave early. We've gotten several questions on that. I encourage questions throughout this program. We'll also dedicate some time toward the end of this event to answer as many questions as possible, because I know you all have them. And I also encourage everyone to please use the chat window to ask the questions. That'll help us save time to streamline things. Again, we'll get through as many questions as we can during this hour. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nebraska State Senator Justin Wayne. Senator Wayne represents District 13. That's kind of a unique district in that it has an urban core, but also includes some rural areas as well. So his legislation and some of the ideals he has to come up with runs the gamut. During his tenure with the unicameral, Senator Wayne has seen many successes. Most recently, he was part of the duel with Senator Terrell McKinney. Together, they introduced LB 1024, the North Omaha Recovery Act, which was a catalyst for the Economic Recovery Act. This historic legislative feat will infuse millions of ARPA dollars into our economy and can lead to transformational change in our community. Welcome, Senator Wayne, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And again, my apologies for the delay. First question I have seen several different amounts associated with the Economic Recovery Act, and I did get some information from Trevor, and it was $335 million. Is that correct? Just so everybody's clear on that.
Yes, but the reason why there's some confusion is that if other ARPA projects do not qualify or do not kick off in a timely fashion, those funds will be transferred to the Economic Recovery Fund as like a catch-all provision.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up, because again, we released the number, but I wasn't sure if it was right or why I was seeing so many different numbers out there. So thank you for clearing that up. So we're all here today with the one big question. What is your vision? We have this wonderful opportunity to really make some big things happen, but everybody's curious to know, what is Senator Wayne thinking?
The biggest thing is we're looking to transform East Omaha, both North and South Omaha. This is not just a North Omaha focus, it's also a South Omaha focus and East Omaha focus in particular. The biggest thing, what I would say is vision, is people to have a safe place that they can live, work, and play in East Omaha. And we're looking at different pockets. We have an RFP that we will vote on tomorrow. That RFP process will help us prioritize with the community through community outreach, what those priorities look like. But for my vision, it's really that simple. It's a safe place to live, work, and play. And we are concentrating on, at least I want to concentrate on, some jobs and economic development. While affordable housing, we believe, is definitely important, we want to make sure people have jobs and the economic capacity to afford the homes that we are building. It doesn't do us any good to build homes if they can't live in it. So we're taking a broad approach. But our focus is economic wealth creation, job creation, and that's where it's going to get hard, because we're going to have some hard conversation with a lot of people who say, we need more social service programs. Social service is important, but we can't social engineer our way out of this. It comes down to economic development and jobs.
Okay, all right. We've talked a little bit just between the two of us about how housing development, though, can play a role in some of that economic development. Can you share some of your thoughts on that?
So talking to the committee, we had two meetings, and the committee seemed to all agree. We haven't taken an official vote on the priorities because we were waiting for the RFP, which is, again, we've got the RFPs in. We will be voting on who that person is tomorrow, or hopefully tomorrow. But what we're talking about affordable housing when talking to the committee is, while the end result is affordable housing, that's just a consequence of us scaling up and creating more jobs. So when we look at affordable housing project, for example, Habitat for Humanity has a huge project that I think is transformational, where it takes what I would consider projects, low-income housing that I grew up in, Myatt apartments. I didn't grow up in there, but some of my family members did. And now they were, I think the second name was Wintergreen Apartments.
Yep.
We knew them as Myatt. Those were all low-income housing area and basically rentals. And what Habitat is doing now is looking at building single-family, multifamily homes, but actually ownership. And so in that process, there's a lot of construction. So I'm just using this as an example of how housing change things. So in that, there's a lot of construction. So what general laborers, what carpenters, what electricians, plumbers, what companies who have people from North Omaha or in North Omaha or South Omaha, can we scale up to get those jobs and to be a contractor for that kind of project? And then be able to shoot them off from that project to do multiple other projects, whether it's residential or commercial. So the end result is still going to be the affordable housing piece, but how we get there is an intentional way of looking at contractors and suppliers to make sure we're scaling up our local economy. When I mean local, I mean east of 72nd Street, not just having people come in and build and then go back out to West Omaha. We want to make sure those dollars circulate within our community. So that's an example of a project that's not ARPA funded. I would like to see some ARPA dollars go there, but we're trying to figure out, if you take a project like that, how many contractors can we scale up and be intentional about building economic development and wealth generation in our community?
Love it. Now we have a lot of different folks on this call. It's not just housing developers on the call. Tell me about some of the other vision that you have as far as when you talk about education. There was quite a few dollars put in there for educational opportunities. In your mind, what does that look like to you?
So from we're job and wealth focused. So OPS received over 300 million of their version of ARPA dollars. So they're doing the tutoring and the academic side. Where we're focused on education is financial literacy. We want to make sure people, again, home ownership. We want to make sure people can balance their checkbooks and know about credit and how to build credit and how to maintain credit. We're also looking at technical skills for those contractors. So we're looking, again, more about business education, entrepreneurship education, and then everyday household financial education. As far as the arithmetic, writing, and those kind of things that you think of generally of education, OPS received a lot of money and they should be able to deliver, or I hope deliver, for our community. But for education for us, we are looking specifically around entrepreneurship and scaling up businesses who need those technical services to grow and to hire more folks who look like us and are from our community.
Give me an example. When you say those technical assistants in some of those businesses, can you break that down and give me an example of what that could look like for a small business?
So profit, loss, income statements, balance sheets, if you have a project, we just don't want you to budget out your project. We want to budget it down to almost to the minute. So you as a company knows every morning when you start your car, you already are negative $350 because of insurance or whatever that number is, and educate them on how to make sure they can run a business. Because there's a lot of technical sides to a business. Let's take plumbing, for example. You could do commercial plumbing and just go work on a site every day. But there's a whole nother side to like residential plumbing, which somebody has to pick up a phone call and say, hey, my pipe burst. Can you have somebody come out? That's called service calls. Well, there's a whole marketing side to that. There's a whole financial side to that. That's not even maybe on the radar of a contractor who's just doing, or maybe wants to be, but not sure how to get there. That they have the expertise in the field, but necessarily don't have the business side of how to invoice, what invoices look like, what does net 30 mean when you have it in a contract, and also just contracts. Like there are form contracts that almost all of our East Omaha small businesses are sent by contractors, and we just sign them. Maybe we need to go in there and scratch out a say and say, no, you got to pay me in 14 days. You can have those negotiation skills. So we got to give them education to empower the contractor to be successful and not just take things the way they are. So we're talking about those kind of technical skills on the business side, not necessarily on the construction side, although we have been having conversations about making sure people know the general basics of construction, making sure people know the general basics of soft skills of how to apply for a job and what an interview looks like, and just those kind of soft skills that I also think we need. And again, we're geared towards jobs, wealth, and economic development.
Okay. I do see somebody with a hand up. Ryan, can I ask you to please put the question in the chat if you don't mind? That will save us some time and help us to streamline a little bit so that we can get as many questions from the senator answered as possible. So again, I'm asking you, I'd have Emily helping to keep an eye on the chat if we want to get to as many questions as possible. So Senator, let me ask you this. If somebody has an idea on how to help bring this vision to fruition, what should they do? What, you know, are the steps still being developed as far as how people should, you know, I know you don't want people blowing up your phone and your email, and I'm sure there's a more structured process in getting ideas passed by the committee.
So there's two parts. There's one part where we specifically allocated money for this year. So like there'll be an airport park business district. Local nonprofit economic development corporation, there'll probably be an RFP from DED. So to answer your question directly, the process is still being created as how we're going to get all that input, but there's going to be like two lines, and there's going to be one through DED, which will be the current allocation of around 120 million for 20 million for affordable housing, 60 million for a business park district, 5 million for something in Lincoln for the Lancaster County. So there's some specific things that'll happen this year that there'll be a process that DED will create. I don't have a say in that process. That's the governor side of things, of the implementation. Where the community will have a say and be able to input most of their ideas is through the RFP that we're getting ready to vote on tomorrow. Once we hire them, they'll be out through websites, Facebook, actually communication. Now that we can meet together in person again, we'll have community forums where we're going to have people submit ideas. And it may just be any idea you want. It may be very narrow, but the one thing that we will look at is the economic impact, jobs created, wealth created, income created. That's going to be the criteria for everything. So there'll be some kind of portal, some kind of mechanism for people to submit ideas, and they'll be evaluated. And then that session or that window will close by December 1st. And then next year, me or Senator McKinney or other senators on the committee will write bills allocating those dollars to those types of programming. And that's kind of how we'll get the community input and the community feedback. We thought we had a pretty good plan going into this when we asked for 450 million. We think based off of the last 20 years of planning in North Omaha and I think South Omaha have been overplanned. We have plans all the time that we just compiled all those plans and put them in the best of the best into one plan. So we think, although we're hiring somebody, the outcome of those feedback and those community input sessions will relatively be the same. The community hasn't changed in North and South Omaha as far as what the needs are and the wants are. This is the first time that we got resources to help deliver those programs and those things needed to solve those needs.
Okay. And the number one thing, I'm just going to repeat it so that people understand what your vision is and where you're trying to go, is you want projects that can create some wealth building for people.
Right. And so like one of the things is, if you I was just talking to Senator Vargas about this literally before I got on this call we were talking about South Omaha and some projects over there. Like we don't want to do one-off projects. And so I don't want to do 150 houses scattered across Omaha and each of those be an individual project. Like we don't want to do a $200,000 project. We're not saying there's not value in that. But from a management bill writing perspective, if there are people who have single parcel lands and they want to do some affordable housing, or if there's people who have some industrial parks or commercial lots and they want to do some development, go talk to your neighbor and make it a transformational plan where you guys can come in as 10 people in a joint venture and apply for a $5 million grant or loan or whatever that structure looks like to get it done. But I don't want to just do one small parcel of a block and the rest of the block just sit there. That's not transformational. We are looking for transformational plans. And that's why when we looked at Habitat, and I'm sharing with the committee Habitat's idea tomorrow, just to have a conversation about these are the kind of ideas, and Senator Vargas is bringing Canopy South. These are the kind of transformational big projects we want the committee to get an understanding of when we talk about transformational projects. And again, there's nothing against remodeling one home. There's nothing against building 5 homes, but we're looking for, these are one-time spends. So there's not going to be more money after this. We're looking for transformational, sustainable projects and models.
Okay, love it. The other thing that you mentioned that was important to you is when you say, getting contractors from the community, getting them involved in some of these transformational projects. They may not have the ability to scale and to develop such a project on their own, but to look, to hire some of those subcontractors and that sort of thing. What does your vision look like for minority contractors and for contractors who are already here, maybe helping them to be able to grow and to scale based off of some of the projects and some of the money that's coming into the community?
So one of the things, LB 450, which was Senator McKinney's bill, Innovation Hub, iHub is what we call it. We put $30 million to back that. That'll be located within 2 miles, or one of them will be located within 2 miles of the airport. And in that, what we're trying to do is actually help scale up these contractors. We hope to have that going by December. I don't know what that looks like yet. The nonprofits can apply, and it's not just nonprofits. Anybody can really apply if they have the right partnerships. And we're trying to get that money out the door so we can spend this winter working with these contractors to put the plans that they need together and the people they need together. So when spring comes, they can start scaling up. So what it looks like for me is, if you're an owner of a project, and it's not just construction. If you're an owner of a business and you want to scale up your business, if you're owner of or a new company and an IT company, so it's not just construction. Construction is just easier to say in these kind of forums. But if you're an owner of a business and you want to scale up and double your capacity as far as people, then what does that look like to get there? And if you're an owner, if you put in, what we're going to do is we're going to weight our RFP, and the committee's committed to this, of almost like Section 3 requirements of the federal government, and almost like hub zones where you're going to get extra points in whatever RFP is put out or whatever economic impact. If you're saying, I'm hiring these contractors, I'm hiring these people from the community, or here's how I'm going to hire people from the community. I will tell you that we're not looking at paying $11, $12 an hour jobs. I made the mistake this year of leaving that out of legislation, but that will be put in next year for any future funding. So we are going to make sure on construction using Davis-Bacon wages. That's just a higher wage. But 2, on any kind of companies that might be invested in, we want to make sure you're paying at least 70-75% of the Nebraska average salary, which per hour is around $21. So 70% of that, 17, 18 bucks an hour. Because again, we're about creating wealth. So we're not trying to invest in a company who's paying $12, $13 an hour. We're trying to invest in a company to create wealth for the individuals and the workers. So we're trying to attract engineering, higher paid jobs to this area.
Nice. Question. Ryan is asking, what is the timing to get these funds committed to shovel-ready projects?
So our goal is next year by the end of session to have all the dollars allocated for the 330 million and plus whatever might come down. The key is these projects do need to be shovel ready, Ryan. So that's the word that you gotta, not just you, but anybody have to remember is we gotta have these spent by 2026. Ideally, what I'm trying to and what I'll try to legislate next year is that these got to be spent by 2025, by end of the fiscal year, which is July 2025. So that way we, the committee and DED, and I'll be gone by then, so it won't be my problem, but go back and do an audit of all the projects, because if there's any clawback provisions, I'd rather have us as a state catch it than the feds catch it in 2027. And that could hurt the property owner, that could hurt everybody. So we want them to have them expended by end of 2025. So that'd be July of 2025. But federally, we have to have them spent by July of 2026.
And Senator, when you say spent, because that's another point of confusion. I've heard two different things. Some people say the project has to be done by 2026, or does the funds simply have to be allocated by 2026?
It has to be allocated by 2024. We have to have it spent. So what I mean spent, the project may not be done, but all the federal dollars have to be spent. So here's what I mean by that. So let's say you have a public-private partnership and they're putting 50 million in and you're putting 50 million in. And I'm just throwing out big numbers as if $5 doesn't mean a lot. It means a lot to me. But the 50 million from the ARPA needs to be spent first, ideally. That way that by 2026, you can say you spent all your federal dollars, because the deadline for all your federal dollars have to be spent by 2026.
Man, it sounds easy, but that's not easy.
It's not easy because there's one, my vision, Senator McKinney's vision, Senator Vargas' vision may not align with the current governor or the next governor. And we can't directly as legislators allocate. We can't set up a grant process and just allocate to what our vision is. We have to allocate to a state agency at some point. And so with the governor being the implementator of all of this, at the end of the day, there could be a holdup. People have already seen that previously with Medicaid expansion, right, wrong, or indifferent. They're just people that they actually control the implementation. So we can write a very prescriptive bill, which we have this year. We'll write an even more prescriptive one next year, but the implementation also ultimately falls on the governor. We're just the funders, and that's kind of the part that we got to navigate. That's kind of why this RFP process is so important and getting community feedback, because we want to write a bill as prescriptive and it still has to be constitutional as we can to make sure these funds get appropriated the way we want. Because we're trying to remove the politics of it. And for a community that's been left out of economic development, both North and South Omaha, for a very long time, we're just trying to get the jobs and get them done.
Okay. Another question. This one is from Ron. And do we know exactly how much money will go to North Omaha and how much will go to South Omaha at this time?
At this time, we know 60 million will go to the airport park project. We know that there is a floor generally across the board outside of the 60 million. So South Omaha, the floor is 35 million, and North Omaha, the floor is 55 million. That's just based off of population. That's just the population in qualified census tracts. And so that's how we came up with those floors. But no, we are actually, we're leaving it to a competitive process. We're looking for the largest economic impact. So there's a floor for North Omaha. So outside of the 60 million, there'll be a minimum of 55. There's a floor for South Omaha, which is 35 million. But we're keeping it open. And again, all of that can change, right? I mean, we can introduce legislation next year to raise the floor to 100 million in South Omaha and lower the floor to 30. I mean, we can do all of that can change next year, but that's why it's so important we get this feedback in the priority set.
Another question, for the RFP process, not DED controlled money, can you please explain who is deciding what gets funded? What is the timeline on decisions? This is a real loaded question. And when is the portal to propose ideas likely to open up?
So if the portal question comes, will come. I don't have an answer to that because we haven't got the RFP. We just got the responses and we're meeting as a committee to vote on them tomorrow. So there'll probably be an onboarding of probably 30 days at least. And then look for that we'll have public announcements on kind of what we're doing and where we're going. As far as the DED, you got to understand, you said not control. DED controls it all right now. That's the way we have to do a separation of power. Trust me, the first version of the bill, I had everything going through the committee where we kind of controlled it, and they pointed to a case out of Mississippi that says it's unconstitutional. So we had to change that. And we knew that going into it, that there was an issue. As far as the timeline, there has to be an initial plan to us, the committee, by DED by August 1st. That initial plan, if I'm DED, I'm just going to do what we've already outlined where we're spending money this year. I wouldn't make it any more complicated than that, because anything outside of that can be changed next year. And now we have a document out there with not necessarily the correct information. So I would just stick to what we've already allocated for this year. the real dollars and the real allocations and what most people are concerned about is where the money going. That's all going to be determined through the RFP process, where we bring in this group, whoever this group may be, and we have community forums and we prioritize what that is. If those who are in Omaha remember, if I was on the school board, when I was on the school board with Jacobs, before we did the bond, we had a series of community meetings where we went through every school, and then we had, not every school, we went through every school, but then we had community meetings talking about what the people wanted from their schools. And then from there, we came up with a number of about $1 billion, and then we prioritized how that should be spent. We're looking at doing something similar in the sense of we're going to create a East Omaha vision, what the needs are, a needs assessment. And my guess is that'll probably come in over $1 billion. And then from there, we'll start prioritizing different projects that we think should be funded, or similar like projects that we should be funded. Now, where it gets tricky, and so when you ask this timeline, I don't really have an answer right now, is because I see Brenda Council on here as a former legislature. We got this thing called special legislation. So I can write it very prescriptive, but what I can't do as a legislature is say this particular project gets this much money. So that's where all of this becomes difficult, and where we're trying to put this plan together so we can give not only guidance to the legislature, but we're also trying to create guidance to the governor. So the next governor or this governor, when we say these are the priorities of the community and the projects, if one of those don't get funded, we have something that isn't special legislation saying, but the community said they wanted this. And that's kind of the checks and balances we're trying to put on this project, is to make sure we have a document out there that isn't special legislation, but is very, very detailed and has guidance to everybody, and what our expectations are and what we're trying to do.
Another question: a significant portion of the plan seems to be allocated to housing preservation. Are these funds dedicated to preserving historic culturally areas, or will those dollars be utilized for general repair maintenance for low-income households?
We are having that conversation. Again, if I was in charge of DED, I could actually give you an answer of what I want, but all I can do is allocate, right? So I can say $3 million to housing preservation, and then I have to go in and detail what that looks like. But ultimately, it's up to the governor and DED to implement it. So here's what I would like to see. What I would like to see is that as we continue to build up new neighborhoods, so let's right now 30th Street, they're doing new stuff and new houses. I would like to see a pot of funds for existing homes be able to get repaired. Why is that important to me? It's important to me because as you build homes around me, I don't want to be the old 1940 house that's historic sitting there needs some repairs, and I'm sticking out like a sore thumb. So what I would like to see with some money allocated is not only the creation of new single family homes, but the preservation and protection of our current single family homes, where they can blend into the neighborhood so it still feels like a neighborhood. Not, oh, we got 10 new houses and there goes this one person who has this brick house that's been here since 1950s that is a sore thumb. We want everything to feel together. Now, how we write that, it's easier on the governor's side to just do it versus us trying to write very prescriptive language. Because think about how we have to do that. We would have to say East Omaha in qualified census tracts where 5 or new homes are built in a block, money can go there. Otherwise, it's vague if we don't get that specific. But if we get that specific, balancing a line of special legislation. I know this sounds complicated, but that's how complicated this bill is, and why people even have confusion on what the total allocation number is, because we wrote it to try to cover all of our bases to make North and South Omaha better.
Yeah, appreciate the housing preservation. I just talked to a Channel 7 reporter earlier today who didn't quite understand the term that was used during the mayor's press conference yesterday. And I explained to him that, being 80,000 affordable housing units short in our market, we can't outbuild the problem. We have to figure out a way how we can keep the current housing stock healthy, safe, and affordable for families. So home repairs is, to me, really important because we want to keep houses healthy for families. It doesn't make sense to move them out and see a house totally going to disrepair, because guess what? We were more house down now, all right?
Right.
Yep. So Okay, I want to encourage people to continue to ask questions. We have the senator for a little while longer, and I don't, this is really an opportunity for you to pick his brain, see what he's thinking, and to see if what you're thinking is in alignment with his vision and some of his goals. So we talked about that there will be a vetting process. We talked about how people will be able to kind of submit a proposal, so to speak, of some of their ideas. But I want to go back to, because we have spent a lot of time on housing, being habitat, of course, but I want to go back to some of the other, I want to make sure everybody gets questions answered and get what they need. When you talked about small businesses, it could be an accounting firm who wants to expand.
Right.
It could really be any type of business.
Yeah, so part of Senator McKinney's bill of the iHub is we are trying to create a place that if you, from start to what we call the unicorn, which is $1 billion company, we want you to be able to walk into this place and get the resources to help you grow or to help you start. So if you're an accounting firm, what we're trying to do, again, back to the contractor piece, is they say, well, I want to take on 5 or 6 new clients. Well, we got contractors over here who need help with back office support. And now that's how we start connecting people to making sure that they all can grow. And then you start talking about construction companies and developers and putting all those pieces together. No matter what your business is, we are trying to help you grow. The other part of the iHub is we're trying to be, we keep calling it the Mecca of the Midwest when it comes to entrepreneurship. So if you have a startup idea in tech or you have the next Uber, we don't want you to go to Chicago. We don't want you to go to Atlanta. We don't want you to go to Houston. We want to find the venture capital here, and we want to be able to create a space for you, not just a space for you to work, but a space for you to live. So part of the areas we're looking at is how do you create an iHub campus with an apartment feel where people can stay on the campus and not only keep people here, but now we can go out and attract a Chicagoan who has a startup and say, we got a place for you to live, work, and play on your idea over the next 6 months and start infusing these people here because it's happening everywhere else. If you have a startup idea or you want to grow a certain kind of company, you leave here and go somewhere else. We can't afford that anymore. We got to keep these people here. And so we're looking at that through the iHub. And again, the North and South Omaha, there's pockets. And so we're trying to put these pockets together to form the best thing. So there's a lot of activity on 30th Street. There's a lot of activity on 24th Street. There's a lot of activity in South Canopy, 33rd and Q area. There's a lot of activity on 24th and Vinton. And so we're trying to get these pockets and say, how do we maximize all of these pockets with these dollars, but do it in a way that it has economic development. And so I'll be blunt, one of the areas that we're struggling with is 24th Street, because right now it's inundated with a lot of nonprofits. It's almost like a historical culture district. And if we approach it that way, we have no problem as a committee figuring out the culture and arts, but that's a different, I would say, perspective than economic development. And so we're having those conversations around 24th Street is like, what's the future of 24th Street? What's the future of 30th Street? Where are jobs, what those jobs look like. And so, and I met with Senator Vargas today, we're having those same conversations in South Omaha. What's the future of South Canopy? What's the future of 24th and Vinton? Is it nonprofit based? Is it service based? Is it what kind of jobs? And again, it all comes back down to economic impact.
Okay, and you kind of answered my next question. I wanted to know if for businesses who are coming forward and wanting to apply for funds, it can be an established business who wants to grow, but it can also be an idea.
It can be an idea. So one of the things we got passed this year it's called a prototype grant. You only have to raise 25% of the dollars you're requesting, which normally has to be a full match. So if you live in East Omaha, we changed that. Part of Senator McKinney's bill, LB 450, is we also added $5 million for business grants. So if you're a newly started business, you can get, I believe, $12,000. And if you're an established business, you can get $6,000. I could be wrong on that because it was Senator McKinney's bill, but there is a direct grant out of the iHub bill for businesses through DED. So we are trying to push businesses into growing and being sustainable. So if you have an idea, if you just want to bring somebody on part-time to help grow, those are the kind of grants that are going to be out there to help you grow and help you scale for this once in a lifetime opportunity.
Question, when you keep talking about the in Northeast Omaha, what are the parameters of that? When you say somebody in Northeast Omaha, business in Northeast Omaha, what does that look like? Are we talking as far out as 72nd Street these days? Or are we bringing it in tighter to 42nd Street? What does that look like?
So it's qualified census tracts
Got it.
and those are LIHTC housing. So actually in Omaha, there's a census tract that's LIHTC housing, 108th and Maple-ish area. There's a census tract. So again, this goes back to special legislation. I couldn't say East Omaha, 42nd Street, West. So there's ways you got to draft things. So what we did is we did a metropolitan class city, which is Omaha, and census tracts. So those qualified census tracts are pretty much East Omaha. There are some of them do go up to 72nd Street, but when you get into that Midtown area, it doesn't go that far. It's only about 42nd Street. So there is a map out there. Just Google qualified census tracts in Nebraska, and you'll be able to see it. But mainly, it's airport to, on my side, about 60th Street. And then as you go downtown, it zigzags back down to about 42nd Street. And then on South Omaha, it's mainly just think of 30th Street East. There's a couple areas west of 30th Street in South Omaha, but mainly 36th Street East in South Omaha.
Okay, and you may have answered this. If 72nd is the western boundary, what are the north, south, and east boundaries within the targeted areas? You kind of answered.
The north boundaries of the qualified census tracts is just shy of the 680, but the south is all the way to Harrison on 24th Street, so it's all the way to the end of the county.
Okay. Okay, I'm checking my list here of questions. We don't get to sit down with you that often and pick your brain and see what you're thinking. I know you're busy, but I just want to make sure that we've gotten all of our questions answered.
So again, this all started, just to give people a background, the Chamber, City of Omaha, and DED really just dusted off an old plan for the Airport Park Business District. This plan has been around since Mayor Suttle, actually, when his last campaign before he lost, campaigned on this issue. And that's what kind of triggered me and Senator McKinney to say, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's just go through all these plans. So Omaha 2020, Vision 2020. I mean, the village, like all of these zones for North Omaha, and we didn't do South Omaha, not on purpose. It's just that I don't represent them near to Senator McKinney, and I don't have a good feel for what they wanted at the time and didn't want at the time. And then I had left for Africa and came back, and we had multiple community meetings in North Omaha. So it was more of a timing thing that we just didn't know what South Omaha wanted, nor do I have the same history that I know personally with the plans in North Omaha. So we just literally went through and picked out the best plans and parts of the best plans and put it in a plan, and then just started talking to people about it. And the needs are still the same, the wants are still the same. And the Airport Park District is a prime example of how we could bring in jobs. So that's where we focused on, and didn't approach this as a social program. We barely even talked about nonprofits throughout this whole time. Nothing against nonprofits, but I have to sell this to 47 other senators because McKinney was already with me, and most of them are outside of Omaha. So one thing that I figured out in my 6 years at the legislature is if you talk business and talk about jobs, that's a very Republicanish idea. So that's all we focused on was this is an economic plan. This is an economic plan. And that's been our focus. And that's kind of where we're locked in. We're trying something different. And I know this seems like a lot of money, but just 20 years ago or 15 years ago, I remember we put $100 million into Building Bright Futures. We've put $300 million through our community multiple times. And I'm not saying we did it wrong. I'm not saying anything like that. We're just for the first time trying to focus on for-profit businesses. We're trying to focus on business and economic development for the majority. And we want to make sure that in there's components of affordable housing, because we all know we need housing, that there's job training and soft skills. But there's also what people need to understand is this is just one aspect of ARPA. Metro Community College got $15 million for training. Community colleges and university got around $60 million for health services and nurses and those career development. So this is just one slice of what I think Omaha, particularly East Omaha, can do to change East Omaha. It's just happened to be that Senator McKinney and I led this charge, but there's plenty of other opportunities that we passed this year to help change North and South Omaha too.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We do have one more question in chat, but I have another question before I get to that one. Are there any myth busters that you've heard in the community that you'd like to set straight? There's just been a lot of stuff going around, and this is an opportunity for you to address it and to, set the record straight, so to speak.
So, well, first I heard that my construction company got $100 million contract. Well, I don't have a construction company no more. I actually closed it in February for this reason, believe it or not. I don't want anybody getting confused that I'm out here doing stuff. And that same as Senator McKinney. We've heard he's got a whole bunch of community engagement contracts. So first of all, none of that is true. Second of all, no money has been proposals that people are just sending us. We have not allocated any dollars. We have nothing. And in fact, I lose money doing these things right here because I don't get paid for them. And as a sole practitioner, if I'm not working, I actually lose money. But this is something that we just believe in. So, Senator McKinney and I, during the session, we were down there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., if not 8 p.m. every night from January through May, just trying to sell people on this idea of economic development in North Omaha and South Omaha. And we were able to get that done. The other myth is that this is just a whole lot of cash that we're going to hand out. And that's just farthest from the truth. These are federal dollars with a lot of guidelines. The guidelines are over 300 pages. So you have to come correct. It's not just going to be a handout for the next nonprofit or the next business to just have something. There are specific things that we've got to make sure we accomplish when we do this. So like the affordable housing piece, the reason why I said qualified census tracts is because the federal government gives us a lot of leeway to do things. But even within the qualified census tracts, we are trying to hit targeted things to make sure we don't run afoul of federal law. We may or may not. That's why we want to get this money spent by 2025 so we can do an audit. But let's be clear, we aren't even taking lunches and dinners with people who we think may be a part of the RFP right now. And so we haven't met with any engineers lately. Since the RFP came out, we've been quiet just because we were waiting for the RFP to come in. So there's a lot of things that Governor Ricketts is going to put all the money on 24th Street. That's not true either. I know in his budget proposal, he put $12 million to 24th Street. Of that was going to a particular project. $6 million was going to a particular project. That project may or may not fit into what we're trying to do. But again, if it doesn't have the economic impact and meet the priorities of what the community wants as far as economic impact, then it won't be funded. That's kind of our approach to this. Is we are doing a step back, a data analysis of what's going to be the biggest impact for our community, and then we're going to go after it. Are we going to do, the other one is we're not going to do anything in North Omaha, which I don't know where that came from, but we are taking a comprehensive approach. I don't want to get into the politics with the city of Omaha on certain locations, so we're trying to avoid those. But if the community comes back and says, we want to put those in those areas, then that's what the community wants. So we're pretty transparent. You can call us anytime and we're more than happy to talk to you about it.
Awesome. Okay. Another question, is there a specific number of jobs you're looking to bring to East Omaha, North, and then also South?
Our initial goal was 1,000. During construction, we think that'll be easy to hit, but we're talking post-construction. We believe the Airport Park District and then what I call the North Omaha Airport Park District, which is just a little bit south, about 65 acres. We think we can easily obtain 600 jobs between the two. And then at the infill commercial and retail space, a big deal that we want to kind of do. We think we can easily do that just in North Omaha. South Omaha is a little harder. They don't have as much 100 acres sitting around for business development. So we're hoping to hit about 400 to 500 jobs there. But again, let me be clear, 300 million will not get us there. $300 million is a drop in the bucket to where we need to be. So after we get this plan done, it's going to be the philanthropic and the business community who's also going to have to step up and put money in. I mean, if Omaha can raise 450 million for, or 400 million for a downtown park, we should be able to raise another 400 million for jobs and moving people out of poverty.
Okay. Another question, are there any federal or tax incentive programs that you know of that that won't work with utilizing these funds? Some tax incentives play better with others or don't. But to your knowledge, are there any restrictions, limitations on how these funds could be used?
So there is some, so I passed a bill 2 years ago that if you invest in North and South Omaha, a minimum of $50,000, you qualify for a tax credit. And that's for the small businesses who aren't big enough to take advantage of the Imagine tax credit, which are the ConAgras and the big companies, Union Pacific, Mutual of Omaha. But for small mom and pop shops, if you put $50,000 in East Omaha, you qualify for tax credits. Now, there is an issue right now with the federal dollars. Actually, there is an issue with all the incentives, depending on how ARPA dollars are given to the entity. And it's usually around LIHTC housing right now is the issue. If it's considered a grant, it changes the amount of assets and money in. It's way complicated for the long for this probably discussion. But if it's a loan, it can be treated differently for tax credit purposes. So for some of those programs, LIHTC housing, it'll probably affect it. Here with Imagine Act and Urban Redevelopment Act, which is the bill for North and South Omaha tax credit, it wouldn't affect those. So we just got to see, again, part of this is if you come to us with an idea, we're going to have, hopefully through this RFP, a team that can help you figure out how to fund it and what's the best way to get that done too. That's one of the things that we want to do through iHub is make sure that we help people project their, what we call waterfall and real estate development, their back financial capital side of that and how it works.
Okay. Are there any concerns? Another question about current economic challenges such as inflation, supply chain issues when it comes to this plan, and how would that be addressed?
Yes, there is. That's why I'm meeting with the governor on Friday. Because my thing is we got to get money out the door now. Everybody thinks we're going to fall into a recession. I think we haven't started spending our ARPA dollars yet. So I think we're going to have probably another 8-9 months of good tax returns as far as money coming into the state. So I don't want to delay this too far. I think we need to get going immediately. But part of it is just government being government and slow. So we're having a meeting on Friday morning with the governor to figure out, what are the quick wins? How do we get this moving along a little faster so we can deploy some of these resources now?
Okay. Okay, got about 5 minutes left. Brenda, council has a question here. How do you propose to ensure African-American contractor participation in light of the anti-affirmative action constitutional state amendment?
So we have not put out our guidelines yet, but I will tell you these are federal dollars. So our state our state constitution does not really carry any weight there. We could set a percentage if we wanted to. We're having those conversations internally. The issue is, honestly, the issue is scalability. What I'm trying to figure out right now, we're meeting with multiple contractors, is I don't want to set a percentage that we can't reach. I don't want to set even any contractor up for failure. And so we're trying to figure out the Davis-Bacon wages, and we're trying to figure out what that looks like. So it may just be more of a hub zone, which is an area. So East Omaha area, hiring contractors from there versus a race. But with the federal dollars, we can use race as a component. None of us have committed to that, and it really becomes, the reason is the scalability. I don't want 5 years from now to say you had a 10% goal and you couldn't meet it, then we'll never ever get that opportunity again. So it's just weighing, that's the part that's weighing on Senator McKinney and I, is if you set a goal or set a percentage and we don't meet it, then we'll never be able to get that opportunity again.
All right. Senator Wayne, is there anything that we have not touched upon that you'd like to make clear today or express?
No, just the biggest thing is be engaged when we start having these community forums, and right now is the best opportunity to start talking to your neighbors. Let's take 16th Street. There's a lot of property on 16th Street that's owned by a lot of individuals, and we don't have the time. And I say we, the legislature, we don't have time to do what 75 North did or South Canopy, where you could spend 2 years compiling property. If you guys know, like I'm just using 16th Street as an example, there's property down there that we could rebuild, get those owners together and have a conversation in your community and create some joint ventures and come into this proposal as a community, as a group. It'll serve you better off than trying to do individual, I hate to say like a $500,000 project. I mean, that's still a lot of money to me, but at the end of the day, we got 380 million and we are not trying to manage a whole bunch of $500,000 projects. And I don't think it has the same economic impact as, say, a whole community. So we're truly looking for, and for me, when we're weighing these options, you see a group of individuals come together saying they want to turn their community around, and they start an LLC and they all got 25% ownership. That's how we change wealth. That's how we change the game, is by people coming together, working together to build something for the community. And for the rest of their lives, they can make money off of that and pass it down to their kids. So that's what we're trying to do.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you. We know that it was not an easy feat to get that passed. I can only imagine the energy and time that it took to get the other senators' votes that you needed to get it passed. So we appreciate you and thank you, and McKinney, for your time and your efforts on that.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. That's all that we have today. I do want to plug one more very quickly webinar that we're going to have on Monday evening. It's a tight housing market right now, and people are trying to figure out how do they even win the bid on the house. We have Angel Starks. You'll see that. Thank you, Emily. She put the registration link in the chat. We're going to have Angel Starks, real estate agent. She's going to be with us on Monday evening, starting at 6:30, to talk about some tips that you can do to win the bid on your next piece of property. It's a really tight market. Out-of-state investors are not making it easy for families to win the bid, but Angel has some ideas for us. So please click the link, join that conversation on Monday evening as well. Thank everyone for being a part and for participating in today's conversation.